We are here for the Windows Tablet Demystified panel to have a conversation. It's almost like the way we started and the way we're ending with the panel conversations. Now, what I would like you to do is, if you have your magazine that came with your bag, and I have some extras that we can hand out to you. Sure. But yeah, in fact, why? How about the panelists? Let me get you guys the magazine, because I'm going to direct your attention. To page 24, and for the worldwide viewers, go to smbnation.com, go to news, go to magazine, and download the salary survey issue, the current issue, and please go to page 24, and I'll get each of you a copy on that. What we did with the magazine that came out 2 weeks ago is I wrote an article on tablets, and by the way, do we have some people that need magazines? Come on up. I'll put them down on this lower table. Page 24. It's my tablet article. Thank you. There we go, if you so desire. But just a quick introduction with the tablets. What happened is my boys and I took a different approach. We wanted to, obviously mobility and tablets are hot, and so we reviewed some of the industry tablets. We had Beatrice Maltzer, who used to work for me. A lot of you know Beatrice, reviewed the Apple iPad, and turned it into an article that's a little bit different than you're used to. It's not a report card. It's not a test lab. It was the real world through the eyes of two teenagers and what works and what doesn't, and then how I use the tablet. So that's kind of that's kind of how the subject came up, if you will, because I took a few months to do that, and I'm pretty excited about the tablet opportunity and mobility. So then with Windows 8, it's a game changer, right, with the Metro interface and what they're trying to do with ARM and so on. So we said, well, let's make sure that we get the right people in to talk about that and the opportunity. And to follow the app development lecture is really cool, because now you've seen how to do the app development, and of course you could develop an app for the tablet and put it in the store. So that's the whole point. So why don't we do some introductions for the audience down the line. Honora, go first. Introduce yourself.
I will. Hi, my name is Honora Moby. I am the founder and editor of Windows8Update.com. I've worked in industry for about close to 20 years. Did a lot of enterprise architecture work, enterprise security work, and IT work, and then became an online marketer as well. And now I blog about Windows 8 and have done so for 3 years.
My name is Wes Miller. I am a research analyst at Directions on Microsoft, which is not a part of Microsoft. I cover SharePoint, SQL Server, and occasionally Windows. And I'm actually, the other day I was here for Michael Cherry, who generally covers Windows, but thought I'd stop by as well.
And you're just an all-around good guy. I went to school in Alaska, where I grew up. So
don't hold it against me.
My name's Tony Bradley. I am a writer for PC World. Primarily, I'm a freelance writer, but I write primarily for PC World on technology and security topics.
Stephen Alford, technical editor for Computer Security News, and has been in the industry about 15 plus years as a Microsoft certified trainer and an original SBSer with Harry in the old days.
Exactly. So what we'll do is, much like the other day, we'll kind of kick off with a couple of questions, and then what we found is between the online community and the in-person community, it kind of drives the expert panel conversation. So guys, I've just gone through scientific evaluation of the industry's leading tablets. And what I would like maybe is to just go down the line, and if you could comment on the roadmap of where you believe Microsoft's going with Windows 8. And Nora, I know you've done an especially good job of tracking where the vendors and manufacturers are going. So why don't we start with you and what you've done at your site?
Oh, sure. So we've taken a look at a bunch of Windows tablets. The Windows tablets on the market now primarily support Windows 7, so we're having to extrapolate by putting Windows 8 on top of them. I have an XOPC slate here, and right now, it seems like depending on the tablet you have, it may be a little bit sluggish. I have a tablet with 2 gigs of RAM, and it's a little slow. There are a bunch of features which are really exciting. in theory, but it's also new. We're having to like comb through and find all the features, and it's a work in progress. I'm not ready to say it's great yet. I love the direction. I love where they're going, but there are a bunch of things which we'll discuss later are interesting. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think some of you heard us speak the other day, but I think the main thing is obviously we're on the front end of the Windows 8 release. We got the consumer preview, which, as Anur noted yesterday, it depends on where it is as far as the percentage as to how finished you view it. Frankly, I think we're going to see the ARM tablets be OEM only, and most likely the best experience with a Windows tablet being also OEM only. I think Anur's experience with trying to shim a Windows 8 experience onto a Windows 7 tablet, and it's not only him. My coworker Michael Cherry has had the same experience. So it's caveat emptor right now.
Well, in thinking about the Windows 8 on ARM, I think one of the things that I think is a little troubling about the roadmap is that the user guide that Microsoft put out the other day specifies that Windows 8 tablets on ARM are for unmanaged environments. Basically, the benefits that you would get of having a unified Windows, a consistent environment, and being able to manage a Windows 8 tablet, you're not going to get with the Windows 8 on ARM tablets. And the flip side being, when you're running Windows 8 on an Intel or AMD tablet, then you run into what Anura is talking about with the, you're gonna have a more sluggish experience. It's not, you're kind of giving up one for the other.
I agree. There's more questions than answers, especially with WOA, Windows on ARM. I'm wondering where they're going to go as far as bringing those manageability and security features up to the level that is going to be compliant. How are you going to get that accepted in the corporate world today if you can't join a domain and manage it from that point? I believe that they're probably just trying to sell either VDI or RDP services on a ARM tablet, and that obviously pushes through another Windows service and product.
So Stephen, we'll go back the other way. So I'm going to start with you because I know one of your niche. You and Tony share a niche in security in common, and so that's the research I've done for the article in pre-Windows 8, but the concern is security. So that's your niche. Talk to us about where it's at today, and then maybe what you know to be true with Windows 8 or don't know to be true.
Well, again, more questions than answers. We're still kind of feeling out, and you heard yesterday and today on the workstation features about direct access. It's not fully baked yet, so we don't know exactly what Microsoft's plans with that as far as the final release in a Windows 8 version. Once we know that, we'll know whether that's going to be overcome the restrictions on a WOA, not being able to log in and join a domain in a corporate infrastructure. So that would be one of my biggest questions, where they're going with that roadmap.
Okay. All right. Yes. Hit on security.
Well, I guess I would say that the iPad, being the obvious frontrunner, has come a long way in terms of its security. There are third-party tools, good for enterprise, that give you some manageability of iPads in the environment. And the fact that Microsoft has already put OneNote and now SkyDrive, into iOS. You've got the impending rumors of Office on iPad. It really kind of waters down the value proposition of Windows 8 on ARM if these sort of handicaps turn out to be true by the time it hits the street.
Yeah, I totally concur. I mean, that's the biggest problem right now is if we look at the value proposition, we've got two horses coming into this race, which is you've got the Windows on ARM and Windows on x86/x64. On the x86, x64 realm, you're going to have functional parity, but it's possibly at the expense of, you're going to be paying for it in both battery use and weight, unless we can see the OEMs and ODMs really move the needle in a way they haven't before. Anur's is not an atypical machine as far as its thickness and its weight for an Intel machine. On the other side, you have ARM, where you have to have the caveats. And if you look at it in context of Windows on ARM and Windows on x86, the caveats on Windows on ARM look horrible. But then if you take the x86 one away and you compare to an iPad, which is actually a more fair comparison, I believe, at this point, there's actually not that many compromises in the ARM one, but you have to keep looking at it as if it's less of a Windows PC and it's more of an iPad competitor.
Nora?
And that actually brings me to something we talked about a little bit yesterday. When you have the fully functional x86 or x64 experience, the example was the Samsung Series 7 yesterday. You also have a very, very functional price at $999 or $1,400. And one of my co-panelists yesterday said, well, you're paying a lot of money for it because it's a computer. People don't care. I can get an iPad 2 for $499. That's the standard right now. So my concern is you're going to have all these like really great, rich Windows features, but if I have to pay $999 for it, it's not going to happen. Just won't.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, I absolutely agree because I received several of those were review copies of the tablets. You know, the games played in the media, and my boys like that. Let me tell you. But I actually paid for the Amazon Kindle Fire with some gift cards I got for Christmas, and you know that Kindle Fire's a little bit of a game changer. I mean, at $199, that's a whole different conversation than $499. Or now what the BlackBerry Playbook's at $299, and they adjusted appropriately, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, you get up around $999. It's a whole different world. And I'm doing the macro tablet conversation. You had a follow up, and then I have another question.
I want to say, if anybody here attends CES this year? Anybody? If you were there, you would have noticed that in a lot of the side areas away from the main convention, there were, if not, hundreds, if not dozens and dozens of knockoff from Taiwan, from China, architectures, x86 architectures, tablets, and all selling between $150 and $200. So when you get close to launch time, if these flood the marketplace, and you're actually going to have the ability to have an x86 architecture running, all the feature sets of Windows 8 at $150 to $200, set. I believe that Windows on ARM may be DOA.
And to add to that, that I think is one of the big, that's actually a good point. One of the big issues is the knockoffs and the Taiwanese and Chinese manufacturers who are going to put together these tablets. I feel like, this is Canadian, but I feel like it's the same thing. If you have a tablet that's like $150, $200, and it's running Windows 8, you probably don't have enough RAM, you probably don't have a good enough CPU, it's probably going to be a problem. And if you have a lot of those going around, the user experience is going to be terribly inconsistent. So I really worry about that.
Tony?
Well, and the flip side of that being, if you're going to spend $999, you're probably much better off to go with an Ultrabook or actual notebook. But I mean, I think the Windows 8 on an Ultrabook, I think, is going to be a sweet spot. I think that's probably the best platform for Windows 8 coming out of the gate. And if I'm going to spend more than $500, if I'm going to spend $1,000, I'd probably go with the Ultrabook because of the Intel battery issues and the trade-offs you're making on the tablet side. I don't think are worth it, especially at that price.
Follow-ups?
The only thing I was going to say too is that the other thing you have to bear in mind, and what we've generally seen. So if you don't know, the Kindle Fire and the Playbook are actually they're cousins. They're based off a very similar chipset.
They really are. They look alike.
Yeah, and they are. I mean, the same ODM makes them. And the thing is, what you've been able to see is how the Kindle Fire, both the lack of the success of the Playbook because it was overpriced, but also the Kindle Fire has continuously forced that price down, and we're sort of seeing this 7-inch tablet as a $199, $249 range, and there's a logical breakdown in my opinion where 7-inchers, you'll never, as Jobs used to call them, tweeners, they never will go over like a 250, and you'll see the 10-inch machines at the 500 range, and if you see an Intel or ARM going over an iPad price range, you're gonna, as Anur's passenger on the plane did the other day, what does it do that an iPad doesn't do? That conversation, whether we like it to happen or not, that conversation will come up.
Yep. Any last comment on this, and then I have a new topic. Okay, so the topic is the market opportunities. So much of the online audience and in-person audience, we have mixed audience. We have IT pros, some government, but our roots are the reseller community, the partner community. So I'm going to go with that. And maybe Wes, well, both of you would well, all of you are qualified to answer this now that I think about it, but what's the opportunity? And maybe over at Directions, you know some stats, and I think you know, but this is a huge opportunity. Why should we be excited? It's a big opportunity.
I think there is a level of appropriate excitement for this product. I think that the big thing with this, the message has to be concise when it comes to selling this to businesses. I just read today that Apple just sold, I believe it was 18,000 iPads to the U.S. Air Force for $9.2 million. And that's, people want tablets, corporations want tablets, and they need a reason to buy tablets. I think the marketing needs to address a reason. If there's integration with Windows and secure integration, if there's SkyDrive or Windows Live, mobility, user roaming, et cetera, I think it's going to be extremely important to have a concise message where it becomes really simple for corporations to understand the value add of Windows 8. We don't know enough to know what that message is, but I think the message is going to have to drive it, whatever that is.
Opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And the reality is that from resellers, partners, OEMs, everybody needs to focus in. Do not glut the market with devices. That's the worst thing you can do. Focus on experience. Don't cram junkware onto this as you may have traditionally done in the past, because all you're going to do is force the switch back over either to Woe or an iPad where you get an experience, not frustration. So, and that's I think clarity is the best.
Tony.
Well, I think there's a demand. I love my iPad, but there are plenty of people who are, they're looking for a different kind of tablet experience. They want the USB access. They want SD memory card access. They want options. I think that the opportunity is there, and I think Microsoft seems like it has done its part, delivering what looks to be a solid experience on the tablet. It's up to the hardware vendors now to give you reasonable hardware at a good price. If they can't deliver, and I would say that even 500 really isn't the sweet spot. They have to come in 450 or below, because at 500 you just say, well, why wouldn't I just buy the iPad?
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, without doubt, I think the most exciting thing about tablets will be for vertical industries that require mobile computing. So any
medical or utility
requires,
reading or
if field people that require computing needs stronger than a smartphone, that's where your opportunity is going to be.
Yeah, well, guys, if you did not catch the article, and again, I got my head into this, and I try to write from the heart from my own experiences. And so as I spent a couple months in this playing around, working, what I did was there was an article that went by the Alaska Airlines cockpit, got rid of the big thick manuals, and they went to the iPad for their in-flight manuals. My first question was redundancy, so I was hoping, do they have 2 iPads on the plane? Okay, just in case. But they went through this whole thing in the article about planes and weight and getting rid of the pillows and the blankets and that kind of thing. So they went through the gymnastics of that, and it kind of basically ROI'd for their purposes, and it's cool, So there you go with the vertical.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note, too, that they're not actually the first computer in a cockpit by a long shot. XP was actually the first. XP, JetBlue used XP in the cockpit really extensively early on. They were part of the the very, very early adopter program. But so and it could flip again. So we can easily see it if the opportunity is there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's one thing I also want to say. I've noticed a lot of emphasis on the x86 and x64 platform, and people saying, oh, you're going to have all these features. You're going to have so many, you're going to be able to do this. You're going to go to the desktop. You're going to have X, Y, and Z. And I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of both software development and enterprise applications. I'll use a quick example. I know we have a lot of time.
No, we're fine.
If you have a large, I spent a lot of time deploying ERP applications. If you have a large, complex software application like a PeopleSoft or an SAP, the application you're actually going to deploy on your tablet is not going to have 10,000 things that an HR person needs. It's going to have 40 or 50 things. The emphasis with the tablets is moving towards simplicity. I need to be able to deliver the core functions a user needs. So if you have this massive tablet that can do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't really matter at some point. So if you're going to charge $700, $800 for a tablet, and you say, you know what, you have access to the full Microsoft Excel or the full, Word, it doesn't really. People don't care. People want a very simplistic, targeted experience that allows them to do their job function, their professional job. So it's something to keep in mind. I keep on hearing a lot of emphasis and focus on all the things that these tablets are going to do, and it's really unnecessary in my mind. So.
Yeah, I read it as part of my research, and this also dealt with the mobile phones. But not surprisingly, we use like 6 apps, right? I mean, out of 80,000 apps, you basically use 6 apps on your phone or your tablet, and that makes sense to me. Now, my kids, that's a different story. They populated up the games and so on. What I want to do at this point is kind of in the Phil Donahue way. I don't know if the camera will pan or not, but I'm going to pick on the Portland guys. So I wanted to get kind of a partner experience. You have a niche in medical, and you have a fairly robust practice. It's Hicks Technology Services. So what are you doing with tablets, or what are you not doing with tablets?
Well, you might have, that might be a loaded question, Harry. I'm actually just wrote an email 10 minutes ago advising my biggest clinic to hang on a sec, because there's a lot happening. So basically my advice to them is let's replace your aging desktops right now, and let's talk about mobility in 6 months, because I want to see this stuff come out, and I want to see some of the hardware stabilize. And then we're going to have a discussion about whether they're really going to put in that $20,000 wireless network to support all this or not, because that's another piece of this whole cost model that they're looking at. That said, I do have other smaller clinics that have used Lenovo convertible tablets, various different brands of laptops. Some of those doctors really like the mobility aspect. Personally, I don't know that they're having a whole lot better experience than a desktop today, because they still have to cart around that keyboard and that mouse and whatever, in whatever form that takes. I think this is really exciting for clinics. Well, this is an iPad. but the reason I carry this is just my lightweight way of doing email and notes. I don't always want to carry my, big powerful laptop around. But what I see in clinics is we need to get the EMR software leveraging these technologies, because when you can come up to the EMR software, and it needs to be able to be hosted across the Citrix or RDP connection to a device like this, and still be able to swipe and get pages and do all this touchy stuff. That I know EMR vendors, and this is not going to happen overnight. And this is the thing doctors get all excited about. Oh, I can do my EMR on my iPad. Well, yeah, but it's a crappy experience. It's a tiny screen. There's no mouse. The app isn't really touch sensitive. So, but I see great potential. It's just not, the software back end isn't there. The EMR vendors are going to need to get this platform and write to it.
All right.
So, Harry?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
that's a good example where I see
respond to that.
iPad versus Windows 8 tablet. The big leverage that Microsoft will have is obviously being able to port these legacy applications that doctors currently have. It's going to be a lot easier because they're already familiar with it with Windows 7 or earlier, and if they can port easily just with an upgrade to Windows 8, they can slowly get used to the touch capability, but they still have a fallback to go back to what they're used to, the mouse and keyboard. So I see that as a big thing for us to leverage in the Windows tablet future.
What I liked about your comment, and I'll get back in the light for the worldwide viewers, but I didn't want this to slip by, but I live my life this way on the weekends. I try to use my tablet and my iPhone because it has a significantly higher spousal approval factor because of the light form factor. I can sneak in a little bit of work. I have both political air cover and physical air cover, right? So the tablet, the Kindle Fire literally fits in my ski jacket. Okay, and so I can go down to the lodge and kind of do what I have to do to feel good about myself, and that's kind of why we're here. I mean, everybody should feel good about themselves, and the tablet allows me to feel good about myself. So there's your marketing reason right there. Other partner experiences, and then I'll check for the online questions. By the way, with the online audience, use the MVP Nation hashtag, and I'll take a peek at that in a moment. So other partner experiences with the tablet. I'd like to make this interactive if I can. Tim, or we got one, okay, back here. Kind of doing double duty here.
Well, I work at Best Buy, so it's mostly consumer-based that I encounter tablets. But the biggest worry I have right now is going between moving from expecting a full Windows experience on a tablet. You'll end up still with desktop-based websites, desktop-based applications. So even just using Android tablets, any sort of tablet right now, if it's a desktop-based application, the biggest problem is that the application designed for a larger screen space, and so you're stuck trying to poke some tiny little icon. And so do you think when they're moving towards Windows 8 tablets, are there going to be a lot more focus on mobile development for just everything, or is it going to be still designed for desktops and then tablets are going to be stuck in this middle area?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you my personal opinion. I like using the tablet. It's very jarring to get back to the desktop. It's almost like, why? I was doing something and I was swiping and all of a sudden I'm back in here. So it almost feels to me like I'm hoping that 99% of the apps will be Metro. It's a beautiful experience. The colors are rich. It's fluid. It's great. And I kind of see why they have the desktop as well, but it's really jarring. I think that a beautiful tablet should have beautiful applications. They should be rich in color. They should be fluid. They should be fast. They should be attractive. And they should be functional. They should allow me to do my job. And I really, 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 except for admins, I really don't see the need for the desktop on a tablet.
Well, to kind of add on and concur with that, I think when it comes to the Windows 8 on tablets, I think it's going to have to be Metro app development that drives that. And as an example, I'll use Facebook. On the iPhone, they had the app way back when, but they didn't have it for the iPad, and you were left trying to run an iPhone app on the iPad in that little tiny box or double resolution, whatever, and it was horrible. And Facebook's position on that for a long time was, yeah, but it's got the full Safari web browser. You can just go to the website. It is not the same experience. I mean, you can, but the app is so much better, and that's true across the board. PC World actually just launched an app, and I personally would much rather read the articles in the PC World app than on the PC World site in the iPad.
And I guess just real quick, almost on the flip side of that, is that using Windows 8, since it seems so tablet-centric, on like a desktop or a laptop, right now with the consumer preview, all of the going to start menu, going to finding the charms, everything you have to mouse off to the edges of the screen, which almost feels like an extra hassle. It makes tons of sense on a tablet, but it's kind of a pain when you're on a laptop. Do you think they're going to stick with that or take any feedback with the consumer preview and maybe give you a darn button?
So you missed my feedback yesterday, I think. I think that if they don't, it's a severely bad thing. I've tried using it with a mouse. It's not usable at this point. So it needs to change in order to have acceptance among users, typical desktop users. If they do those kinds of their affordances, if they do mouse-based affordances, absolutely. I think people can come to grips with it. I've seen a lot of Windows 8 fans speaking out and lashing out like, you're not, change happens, you should just get used to it. No, users don't do that. Users stop using it. They don't go buy it because a friend told them it was too hard to use. So they have to do those kinds of affordances if they want to rock and roll on the desktop too. One other thing I wanted to highlight on this is one of the weird areas where, in particular, it's ironic where you work, that you all are going to face one of the hardest challenges, which is telling a customer what the deal is between WOA and x86, because where you were asking, what are the apps going to be like? It's easy. On WOA, there's Office, and then all of the Metro world. On x86, all bets are off. You can run anything you want. So it's going to be almost a better world in that regard on WOA. So it's sort of like you have to sit there and weigh the pros and cons of each platform.
And by the way, for the online audience, define WOA.
Windows on ARM.
Okay. And I'm with Mikkel from All Covered, and you're writing with a pen, a stylus on your. What's going on here with your tablet?
Okay, so this is an iPad, and I purchased it a couple years ago when I went to school to get a digital forensics certification, and I was in class all day, and so I was lugging around a laptop, and when I'd have a 3-hour break, I was trying to read my Cisco textbook, which was like 1,200 pounds, and I thought, I had this brilliant idea. You know what? If I get this iPad, I can maneuver through my screens, and I can read the text online, because Cisco does have text online, and I can use my little netbook to take notes. Turns out that iPad does not support Flash, and so there we go. Tough luck. Sorry, you have this really cool, little entertainment center to waste your time instead of studying. But I've started repurposing it. We've been watching a lot of, do a lot of Netflix on it. That's great. A lot of Facebook, a lot of free games. But what I've been doing recently was it's smaller, it's portable, and I do tech writing. And I don't necessarily write with this at all, but when you're sitting at the doctor's office, you don't want to carry a laptop, and you just want something you can scribble your notes down. While you're waiting, maybe you get bored, you want to flip and read a book. I can read my Kindle store, my books on here. So Kindle, my daughter's got a Kindle, and so I can buy books, and she and I can share them, which with an iPad purchase from the iBook store, you can't really share on Kindle. If you buy a Nook from Barnes & Noble, once again, we've got kind of these proprietary apps going on where you can't share across all the different platforms. So I found this is useful in some ways. I'm currently writing with a stylus, and I'm using a program called Notability, which was 99 cents. There was another program that was recommended that has an additional in-app purchase, which allows a handwriting to text conversion, but my handwriting is absolutely atrocious, and I really don't know if I want to sink the cost into it to see if it can or can't read my writing. But it's nice because I don't have to carry something that's as heavy as a laptop. However, when I get home and I have to convert 153 pages of chicken scratch into my computer, that might be kind of a tedious pain in the rear end.
And we'll make that the final word.
I wanted to make a comment on that. 1 month last summer, I spent.
Oh yeah, you did the 30-day parent. All your articles
set
are
aside
30
my
days
notebook.
with. That's right. I forgot about
and
that.
I spent all 30 days just working from the iPad, just to prove whether or not you could use it as a notebook replacement.
With a keyboard?
Pardon?
With a keyboard?
You have to follow the story. So the first 7 or 8 days, no, I just used the virtual keyboard, and eventually I did get the physical keyboard because I'm a writer. And actually, it's funny because I'm not actually like a touch typist with in the traditional sense. I have my own proprietary typing method. So the virtual keyboard actually works just fine for me. The reason I went with the physical keyboard is because when you're using the virtual keyboard, you're taking up half of the display real estate.
Yeah, I agree.
But bottom line, at the end of the 30 days, my verdict was that for 90% of the population, it would work just fine. It wasn't great for me because I write. If you're a developer, you're probably not going to be, writing Xbox games on your iPad. There's a lot of things there are niche careers that you wouldn't do that. But for most people, you're surfing the web, you're writing some emails, you've got various apps that will let you, do spreadsheets and write documents and presentations and everything else. And now that the value proposition there is even better because now you've got things like OnLive that let you subscribe for like $5 a month that you can stream actual Windows to the iPad. So there's value there. So long story short, I was going to say that I think that there's an opportunity, going back to the earlier question there, on the Windows 8 side, that again, if the experience is good and the price is right, there's an opportunity there for businesses to replace PCs and replace notebooks with tablets for a lot of employees.
Yep, I'll take one more panelist comment, and then I got another question.
I wanted to return back to that display question about it not being large enough. If you saw the trend of moving to Ultrabooks, Most Ultrabooks are very small displays, 11-inch. You're finding a lot of tablets now are coming out, the higher-end ones, 11-inch, carrying the same resolutions as those Ultrabooks. So if it works on an Ultrabook, it should work on a tablet. And if tablet gives you the ability to do the desktop display the same way a desktop Windows 7, let's say, does on an Ultrabook, there should be quite a market for the Windows 8 tablet.
So I was just going to real quick comment, because I have an iPad, a ThinkPad, and a giant Acer 27-inch monitor at work. And I can tell you, again, as a writer, that there's a distinct, I can tell you with an outline almost, the things I can accomplish with each modality of my life. And there's just stuff I can't do on the iPad. I love my iPad. I love my ThinkPad, except for its battery. We'll talk about that later. And then, having the principle of having a giant screen with Snap under Windows 7 is phenomenal. It's so incredibly usable, but each one has different utility.
Right. Couple of online comments, but first one of my own, and it relates to what you said. If you look at my two boys on page 26, the one on the right, Jeff, and the band shirt, the pink shirt, fundraiser shirt, these kids, they carry these backpacks that are 40 pounds. I mean, what was that? And the back troubles they're going to have. And so, to your point exactly, I tried to have a conversation with my 16-year-old that in his lifetime, that backpack will go away. And it's all going to be on a Kindle Fire or a pad. And I truly believe that. I mean, it's really, yeah, exactly. So that's a comment. Couple online comments, then I'll take your question. We have Jeff Dinninger, who's been very active all 2 days. Thank you very much. I strongly agree that UX on non-touch devices, i.e. 90% of the devices out there, leaves a lot to be desired. He goes on to say, my solution to the UX hassle on Win 8 non-touch devices, start memorizing keyboard shortcuts. That's smart. Easier than mousing to corners. Five Start Technology says 7-inch versus 24-inch screens. I understand the mobility aspect, but not everyone can read on those small screens. As I look over my glasses, I totally agree. And then finally, Tech Excellence is saying, my iPad stays at home for the kids to play games, and my Android pad can run Biz Win 8 tablet. Win 8 tablet should be the best, full office NIE. We have a question from the audience.
Harry, real quick, one thing I wanted to comment on. So, keyboard shortcuts, no op. My mom and dad my dad will be 70 in a month. There's no way he's going to memorize shortcuts. Me, I'll tolerate it. I'll probably learn some of them just so I can have a little fun with it. But you've got to get the mouse affordances right. It just has to happen.
And just to follow up on that, there's an article I'm going to write in a couple of days or tomorrow. I saw this thing about, there are 30 new shortcuts, and the truth is, no, it's not going to happen. I just refuse to do that. You shouldn't have to memorize 30 different ways to all do this. It just, no, too much.
Question over here.
Yeah, I have a quick comment about your shortcuts. That's like going back to DOS. Actually, mine is an experience with using portable or tablets in a business scenario. This is a trucking company that has dispatchers, salesperson, and the truck drivers. So the salesperson goes out. They have a web app that all the tablets are on. So the salesperson goes out. This was a custom-written app using one of the shared calendars you can get online. But the salesperson goes out, says this is when the job is going to be done. Then the dispatcher tells whichever trucker is going to go do that job, go do this, and all the information is there online. And they just use they use a cellular or 3G or whatever's available out in North Dakota.
Okay.
And I also have another company that's asked me to set them up with tablets, and they're a well drilling company, and it's going to be pretty much the same thing.
We've had this world where everybody's had a little paper notepad, truckers, these whole point of service. You can look at it in different ways, but they've had a notepad that they've been using for the last 40, 50, 80 years. There's a lot of that makes sense, whether you're talking about a Windows device or an iPad, for it to move to a digital device, whether you're connected or not.
And Wes, what I could see in listening to you, and I worked my way through college on the pipeline back home in Alaska, and you had those guys up in Prudhoe Bay. You had the flip, What were those boards they carried with notes? But you know, the oil industry is about capital investment. It's fairly progressive in a lot of the technology they use. I mean, it's one of the cooler things about being involved in the pipeline. And man, I could just see these things up in Prudhoe Bay and out on the Trans-Alaska pipeline, and then transmit the data and yada yada yada. I really could.
Well, and you know, this is perhaps more of a mobility in general than a tablet thing, but it has business applications like what you were just talking about. Like for example, I know that the FileMaker app and database is capable of updating in real time across all devices. From iPads to iPhones to Mac or whatever. And so there are businesses that are using that as like an inventory management system, because as soon as a sales guy sells it and hits go, it's taken off the inventory so that somebody else isn't selling the same thing and you don't run into problems. And on a personal level, in my house, we have an iPad dedicated to the kitchen that we use to track the grocery list. And then I know that I can pull up. We do it in OneNote, and I can pull it up wherever I'm at on my iPhone, and I know what we need.
Absolutely. So, any audience questions? Other? Yes, sir.
So I did email Mr. Moby about this kind of yesterday. So in terms, there's a lot of rumors going about Flash capabilities on Windows 8 on tablets. Also, maybe killing off Silverlight. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. Especially being Windows 7 phone being used to Silverlight. And then does this cause like a move towards HTML5 for everyone?
Right. So, I said it yesterday, the only certainty we know is that there's a lot of uncertainty. And unfortunately, when it comes to WOA in particular, you don't know a lot of stuff. I can all but guarantee you won't have Flash. I'm pretty darn sure that you won't have Silverlight. We're seeing, even though there's, SCCM is weeks supposedly away from releasing and it has a Silverlight-based console, the reality is we're seeing momentum generally even within Microsoft to slow down on Silverlight development. It's in the IT space, but you're seeing a lot more momentum on HTML5, and the reality is that's where it's headed. So that may be another caveat with the ARM version of Windows 8 versus the x86, but we'll have to wait until Stephen tells us.
There you go. Other questions from the audience? Observations, experiences with the tablets? Sir?
Well, and I'm hoping I'm not treading over what was talked about yesterday, because I didn't get till about noon. But this, along with the plugin part, is that I know even just right now with just the Metro interface, if you're using IE10, there's no plugins, period, whatsoever. And so you have to move over to the desktop to use it, which again is just one more thing, just like the mouse affordances is on PC, it's just one more click. So I think, just from looking at it, it looks like WOA is not going to have plugin support, let alone not just Flash, but yeah, like you were saying, Silverlight, anything, which seems really interesting to me.
Well, this is one of those weird catch-22s. I feel like I'm hogging the conversation. I'm sorry. It's one of those weird things where if you look at Itanium, and I don't like to compare ARM to Itanium because I think there's a very different play for WOA than there ever was for the Itanium platform. Itanium never had plugins. Well, fine, browse from a server, but it's the same problem. It's such a fundamentally different architecture, and in that case, it didn't make sense. But in the ARM case, it literally doesn't make energy sense because you start adding those plugins, and that's the reason why Steve said no on Flash on iDevices.
And I think as soon as Microsoft starts actually certifying full tablet hardware on ARM specification versus just saying it's on ARM specification and there's no real hardware that they're willing to get behind, you'll start to find an adoption of that. Also, we're seeing in the partner community as well as the reseller community that Microsoft is sponsoring a lot of these HTML5 camps, so I think that's the direction they're going to be moving in.
Just to kind of jump on with something Wes said about Flash on WOA, based on the fact that Adobe has already thrown in the towel on Flash on Android as well, I don't think you're going to see Flash on mobile platforms, period. So yeah, it'll work in the desktop mode on an Intel, Windows 8 tablet, but I don't think you're going to see Flash on WOA.
And Tony or Wes, what's the context of Adobe abandoning? I'm out of the loop. Why and what's going on there?
It's one of those things. So Okay, you're dealing with the key mobile platform said no. The experience on Linux was generally meh. The experience on Android has been subpar. And the reality has been that developers and customers have pretty universally said HTML5 is good enough. And that actually brings me back to one quick point, which I think is, whenever you're thinking, whether you're an ISV or a partner, whatever you are, you have to think about this right now as an opportunity. This isn't about sucking your old application and bringing it forward, kicking and screaming. This is about a new opportunity. This is about a new world of WinRT-based apps that you can actually do and design with the user in mind, instead of, I've got a bunch of data, I need to get it to a screen, go. And I think that's really important. So taking Flash and Silverlight and plug-in based things out of the equation is actually a part of that. Focus on the user first.
And I think that's a great point. And we all have to kind of recognize that the definition of a a tablet application, what is a tablet app? That's still being defined right now in terms of, what level of complexity should tablet apps have, what's unacceptable, how many fields on the screen, and it's all being fleshed out right now. So, but in general, he's right. You don't want to have a legacy application with 80 fields on the screen and then try and port that to, it just doesn't work. It's not going to work.
It's actually a valid point. I heard it described this way one generation ago in computing, is that in film, in fact, the artist won all those awards, so it kind of takes us back to the day of the silent films and the talking films. But in those early days with film, we were still defining the paradigm of what the storyline was. So you knew if you saw a shadow of a hand with a knife, right, in one sequence, and then there was the victim in the shower or whatever, you knew what was coming, right, that there was going to be the victim is stabbed. And film was doing that back then, and they were doing it silently and then with sound. And that's kind of how I feel with each new revolution or evolution of the technology, is we have to define what those experiences are. We don't know what we don't know, if that makes sense. So, Tim, we're running out of time, and I want to interrupt your Angry Birds game. Sorry, man. So...
Can we say hi to Korea?
Wow, you're good. You're really good, man. Look at you. So you're kind of from the Bay Area and a little bit independent. And so thank you for coming up to Redmond, first of all, by the way. We really appreciate it. They approved your visa, I see, to visit. But you've been in the game a long time with the phone and the tablet. Running out of time, what's Tim's world on the tablet? And then we'll do a summary.
I think iPhone has the day for right now. And the iPad, definitely. Okay. And then I'm just not sure about ARM yet. I think as the smaller devices for the Windows normal platform get better and better, we'll start seeing more of those. And I don't see ARM making it.
Are you guys talking about it in your user group, the Bass Bits group down in the Bay Area? Have you had a presentation, or is it part of the conversation yet, the tablets?
We've had several conversations about mobility, which the tablets have worked into, but we're treating it as a bigger picture because I don't think there is a right answer at this point.
Okay. All right, so let me just check the online community. We've been getting some comments up on MVP Nation, up on Twitter, so let me just go see if there's any additional comments there. Yeah, give them a big wave overseas. There are no additional online comments, so why don't we start to just go down the road? Let's do a wrap on Windows 8 tablets and tablets in general.
I like the strategic direction. I like the Metro UI. I think if you guys are trying to sell to customers, I think there's a real opportunity. The biggest thing I would say is you can tell your customers this is an exciting way to create tablet applications for their legacy. Using Metro, encourage them to go to Metro and try and sell those benefits. This is an incomplete story, though. We can't talk about this without acknowledging that on March the 7th, we're going to find out about the iPad 3, and that's going to be a part of that conversation as well. What's the new standard going to be? And maybe after that, we'll have another discussion about this. But yeah, I do think there's an opportunity, and it should focus on trying to sell your customers on Metro. I think that's where the strategic advantage is. Thanks.
So I think that there's two key pieces, which is we're down to the devices themselves and what developers do with this opportunity that Microsoft has presented them. Not prevented. That was Freudian. So I think that OEMs, ODMs need to build devices that are, again, experiences, not a bunch of hardware hacked together. I was just over at Hard Drives Northwest looking through, and I used to love that place, and now it terrifies me because
Are they still around?
they still are. They combine with the other
God.
guy, but you can buy hardware peripherals and stuff there. You build your own PC, and that's not what this is about. This is about building an experience again. So price, packaging, marketing, that's what OEMs have to do right. Developers, make awesome apps, and don't go back to Win32. Take the opportunity to build something new.
Well, I would say, the iPad has had the market since the iPad came out, and the iPad still dominates the market. The number one selling Android tablet, if you take the Kindle Fire out of the loop because it's not really a full featured and it's a separate fork, and the number one selling tablet is the Samsung Galaxy Tab.
Yep. I agree.
And an executive from Samsung admitted at MWC that it's not selling. So if your number one tablet isn't selling, that's not a good sign. So that means it's a good sign for Microsoft, though, because it means that there's still a huge opportunity for a non-iPad competitor out there. And if it's going to work, I think it's going to be WOA, because I don't think the Intel tablets are going to live up to it. I think you're going to go Ultrabook in that case.
I have to take a counterpoint to that. I believe that WOA, WOA is going to be DOA if Microsoft doesn't step up and actually come out and certify actual WOA full tablets. Nobody can try it yet. Nobody's sure what it's going to work on exactly, and so nobody's producing full tablets that we can play with and we can review actually. So I don't see that future of WOA. I believe that, as I said, what I saw at CES, when you can see all these knockoffs of x86s down in the same range that you'd expect a WOA tablet to be, and they can have all the advantages of an x86 architecture that you're not going to have in WOA as announced with this recent version, that when it gets to it, if you have that market low end and high end on x86, I don't see a future for WOA.
Okay, so thank you very much, panelists. Couple of closing comments. I'm personally monitoring how WebOS does or does not make it in the HP camp with the HP touchpad. That's one of them I reviewed. I actually miss it. I liked the HP touchpad. It's slow. The gestures and some of the things I write about were of a concern. And then, as you're aware, they transferred the WebOS to the open community. And it's a little sad. I'm just going to monitor that because it's a little sad, because basically, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they basically took a write-off on that Palm acquisition. I mean, that, this just goes back a long time ago, and Palm was pretty darn cool, and they basically took a write-off on that and weren't able to capitalize on it. So I'm closely watching what HP's going to do, and I think what the Slate is kind of their go-to now, and so we'll see how that plays out in a Windows 8 world. And then also on the BlackBerry Playbook, and I'll end on this note, but for the people worldwide listening and the people in the room, hopefully you had a chance to vote. You can certainly still do it. We had the SMB 150 contest, our second year of the influencer list, and the 150 people that are awarded that based on voting and judges' validation will receive a BlackBerry 64 gig playbook. So BlackBerry stepped up and donated 150 of the BlackBerry playbooks. That's kind of cool, actually. You have influencers. They'll be seen in Hollywood and public and places beyond with the playbook. So that is a vote that goes on in the month of March, SMB150.com. The nomination period has now closed, about over 400 nominations of SMB influencers. And if you went by the booth, maybe you've already cast some votes, and you can cast one vote per day. The more, the merrier. And so that's a little hook on the tablet. What we're going to do now is we'll take a short break, and we have our traditional ending town hall meeting. And so I got to go find my staff. We sit up here, we take your feedback. The worldwide audience can participate in this too. Up on Twitter with MVP Nation is the tag. But we basically find out what you liked about the last 2 days, what you did not like, what can we do better next year. You've been to enough of these to know that's sort of our tradition. And you know what, while it's top of mind, we're going to send you out a survey later on anyways, but I'd rather, just rather capture your thoughts while you're still here and before you head back home. So thank you very much, panelists, and thank you, audience, and we'll take a 5-minute break.